On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse, we talk with an abuse survivor named Teddy. And Teddy was in a relationship with a deceptive abuser. It's a story of guilt, financial abuse, infidelity, chronic lying, and crisis manipulation. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and with me today, we have Teddy. How are you?
I'm good, Brandon. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking. And if you want to be a guest like Teddy is today, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com, fill out our guest form, and we will go from there. Also at our website, we have a support group with Zoom meetings every Wednesday nights, Thursday afternoons, and Saturday nights. And we have forum boards for you to post on to get the validation that you need from survivors just like you. So join our support group today. And we also have a newsletter as well where you get a free reflection workbook for every new survivor story. And that's a weekly newsletter, all at narcissistapocalypse.com. And we do have a content warning for this episode as we do discuss sexual pressure and self-harm threats in this episode. And today you're going to hear Teddy's story. And Teddy is a very empathetic person. And unfortunately, that empathy was used against him in a myriad of ways. And Teddy was essentially used until Teddy had nothing left to give anymore. And even though this is a shorter story, there are many abuse tactics, situations, thought processing, and feelings that will validate your experience. So a big thank you to Teddy for being here with us today. And now I'm going to get out of my way and your way. Teddy, the floor is now yours.
So this is a story about someone that I trusted, and in the beginning, it seemed like she was perfect for me, and together, like we were going to build something. But over time, I started realizing that some of the things that were happening were not okay. She started isolating me from my family and friends, and she would use manipulative tactics to drain me of finances and drain me of my energy, and would trauma dump and like have me come to the rescue. She would make me feel that I wasn't doing enough to help, and I would try and overcompensate and do too much that pulled me further and further away from who I was, and like give her resources that sometimes were not negotiable, but I felt the need to do it because otherwise I would not be helpful to her or be the empathetic person I thought myself to be. And this person would just feed on my empathy and my emotional and mental health and just pulled and pulled from me. And now I'm going to break into my childhood. I was born in West Africa, and when I was young, like my dad and my mom separated. So that kind of had an impact on me growing up. My dad was a serial cheater, and I didn't really see much of him, like outside of him and I hanging out. It was just be late at night. So like when he left like a huge gap in my heart a little bit. So I grew up with my mom, and then my mom ended up leaving and came to the United States. So I was left to be raised by my auntie and my cousins. And then when I was 13, my mom brought me to the United States. So when I came to the United States, I found out that a lot of the struggles my mom went through in the US. She was homeless at one point. She ended up being in another abusive relationship. Well, I shouldn't say another, but she ended up being in an abusive relationship where I remember when I was young and in high school, this man put his hands on my mom, and neighbors called the cops. And when the cops came, I lied to the cops and said, oh, the argument was me and my mom arguing about my grades, which was not true. I was a very good student in high school, straight A student. So the cops left, and my mom's eye was really red and swollen. And so I told myself I would never be like those, like that kind of person, that kind of man. My entire life, I've seen men just not treat women good and not be there and be supportive and be abusive. So I didn't want to be like that. So I always wanted to be someone that was like very dependable. Interesting enough, my mom still is friends with that abusive man because she felt like she owes this man a lot because this man helped her come to the US, basically like helped her with the visa process and all that. So I like maybe that's sometimes I feel like I get my empathy from her, and that influences a lot of stuff that happened to me and how I approach relationships and stuff like that. And it kind of led into like who I was when it came to the relationship I had with my abuser. So when I came to the US, like I was straight A student, like I said, and then after the whole abusive thing that happened with my mom, like my grades started to slip towards the end of high school. But I had already gotten into a college, a very prestigious college. And so I was off to college, but that was the first time I was by myself. I was very young. I was like 16, about to turn 17. And then it was like fresh 4 years I've been in the US and already I'm in college, away from my mom, away from everybody. I didn't know anyone. I was the first in my family to like go to college. So I didn't know anything. I like the whole application process. I did it all myself, all that. So it was like a huge adjustment. And then when I got to college, it was kind of hard for me to adapt to the whole. So I was supposed to do engineering at first, but my grades were not good enough. And they told me, hey, you should probably not do engineering. So I decided to do something else because I like the sciences. I just was not good at engineering. And so my belief about myself and people was that, you know, people can be redeemed. And that played a role in how my grades started improving. So my grades started improving and I felt like, wow, like I can do this. And leaning on my faith was something that really helped a lot. So I was like in a much better place after this and about to graduate college. So in college, towards the end, I needed a job because I wanted to get a car. And I had worked in at Walmart the summer before. And so I wanted to see if they would hire me on for like another summer before I graduate so I could get my car. And one of my former coworkers was standing there with somebody and I interrupted their conversation. And that person was the person that ended up being my abuser. She thought I was very rude for interrupting their conversation. And I was like, who are you? And she was like, oh, who are you? So like that was the end of that interaction. And then I got that summer position at Walmart. And so at this point, I started working there in the lawn and garden department. And she would come there all the time. And I was super, super confused. And she was like, oh, I like talking to you. And so we kind of became close friends, but she wanted to date me at this point. And I was like, no, I just got out of like a relationship, kind of not relationship. So I was like, no, like I'm good. But she still pursued me and she got fired one day. Like one day I went to work and she was no longer there. And I was kind of shocked by that. I asked all her friends, oh, where's she at? And they said, oh, we don't know. Like she didn't show up. So it was at this point that I found out that, oh, she got fired for not coming to work. But she had expressed to me during I was like my time working with her that she was having problems at home. Like her mom was very mean to her and all these things. And so yeah, that was how we met. And so that I think it was around November of 2016. She messaged me out of the blue and was like, hey, why are guys so cruel? And I was confused, like, what do you mean? And she said she had been dating this guy and the guy cheated on her. And because of like my past experience with like people cheating on my mom, and I kind of felt for her. And so I was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's not that men are cruel, but you know, relationships are hard and stuff like that. So we kind of reconnected again after several months of no contact after she got fired. And so we started talking again. And because we had such good chemistry back when we worked together, I felt like, oh, this person is great. She seems smart. She seems very ambitious. She always used to make a joke, oh, I want to sell drugs legally, which means to become a pharmacist. At this point, because like engineering didn't work out, I wanted to go back to school after I graduated and like, see if I can do medicine, which was something that I always had a passion for because I love science and stuff like that. So we both seem to be like very smart people, very ambitious people. We just didn't come from backgrounds that could help us like achieve our goals. And I felt like we could support each other at this point. And so I asked her, there was a new movie coming out with Jake Gyllenhaal. It was like an alien movie called Life. And I was huge into like alien movies and stuff like that. And she also loved like science fiction and stuff like that. So it was like, wow, like she loves science fiction. She loves comic books and stuff like that. So we were going to go see the movie Life, and I was ready, all set, ready to go. And I kept messaging her and she was not replying. I'll call her, she was not picking up. And basically I got ghosted, and that was supposed to be our first date. So I was super confused, and weeks went by, and she messaged me out of the blue again, was like, hey, I'm very sorry that this happened. I just didn't know how to tell you, but my mom basically wouldn't let me out of the house and stuff like that. I was still upset, but at the same time, I was like, oh, I can see, how strict a mom can be, because my mom was very strict with me too. So I could understand how strict a parent could be to avoid, prevent your kids from getting involved in certain things. So I decided, okay, sure, we can give it another go. And yeah, so I gave it another chance, and we went to go see another movie, and that kind of started our officially us dating. But before that, she had mentioned, oh, like she was depressed a little bit, and she had like family issues that were causing her depression. So she had expressed that she has mental health issues, and having come from a country where people don't really care much about mental health, not that they don't care, it's like there's a stigma behind it. I kind of understood it in a way that, hey, we're human beings, like we're all humans and we go through stuff. So that kind of endeared me to her, like her opening up about her own mental health. So yeah, so that kind of started us on this journey of trying to be each other's support. And so in the beginning, it felt like everything was ideal. Like, wow, she would see me as her safe space in a way. And I felt like I was elevated in a way, because I felt that, wow, I was useful to somebody that I can care for, and somebody that cares about me and how I feel. And I feel I care the same about this person too. I thought she was very funny, and we would confide in each other a lot. She also played into my whole idea of my physical features, because I had low self-esteem about how I appeared. She didn't really feed into that. She was more like, wow, like you're handsome, you look good the way you are. And initially, like when we started dating, people make a comment about like our height difference. She was like maybe 2 or 3 inches taller than me. And then she was like, oh, don't worry about what she said. I felt like she was very protective of me in a way. And so I was like, wow, this person really cares about me and doesn't even care about how I appear and stuff like that. So once we started dating, some of the early red flags were like she would just lie about things that didn't need to lie about. It was just, yeah, it didn't make sense. Like she would just lie about very simple things. My friends like did not like her for some reason. And she will also lie in front of me to other people, but I didn't think much of it. And also like she would tell me about her mom and the issues that was going on. And it felt like trauma dumping. Like she would just tell me all these bad things, and it would just take an emotional toll on me. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do. And if I didn't agree with her, I was a bad guy, and I wasn't a good listener. And so I would have to like find a way to agree with her, even if I didn't agree with it. But yeah, these were reflects that I didn't really think much about, but everything else was smooth at this point. So I was like, oh, okay, this is it's not a big deal. Like, we all tell little lies here and there. It's really not a big deal. But I started like noticing like the lies that she would tell. For example, like she would tell a lie about Like when I wanted to go to Europe, and she lied that she had been to Europe before. And I found out she had never been to Europe because she didn't even have a passport. And then there was another time she lied about some guy being from my country too. And I was like, oh, how do you find out? And she was like, oh, he posted the flag of your country on his page or something. So I went to the guy's page and the country's flag was not there because I wanted to meet more people from my country at that point. So it was odd. Like, why would you lie about this person being from my country? And so it felt like she would just double down on her lies, always wanted to be right. So I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. And then there was another time I went to go see my family in Canada because my auntie was having some anniversary of their wedding or whatever. And she was just constantly calling me. And so she told me that her friends said I was rude to her. And I was like, what? I was just trying to tell you, you don't need to be calling me all the time. I'm trying to enjoy my time with my family. And so this is when I didn't know it at that time, but it was called triangulation, where like she would just tell me, oh, so and so said this about my interaction with her. And then she also had like very risky like sexual behaviors that like we went to see a movie and she wanted to like have oral sex there. And I'm like, no, like I'm just trying to watch the movie. And first off, you can get kicked out. And not only that, the cops could get involved. So it didn't seem like something I wanted to do, but she was very insistent on it. And that became a fight. If she didn't get her way, it became like a fight or an argument. Also, she just seemed ill prepared. When I was in college, if like I had an exam coming up, I would make sure everything was in place for the day of the exam. One time she called me and was like, hey, I need to borrow your laptop right now. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And she was like, well, like my laptop is not meeting the requirements to have this program downloaded for me to take the exam. So I was like, oh my God. So I picked up my laptop, ran over there, set it up for her, and then she was able to take the exam. And I was like, why did you do this? Like, why didn't you check to make sure you could take your exam on your laptop for, because, the day before or something. So she seemed very ill prepared. Another time, like, I drove her to take an exam, only to find out that the exam location had changed. And they had informed them through email that, hey, the exam location had changed. So we had to like run across campus. She ended up failing the exam. So it was like, okay, this is not the same person that she portrayed herself to be. And so there was always like, seemed to be an issue that she needed to get rescued from. So 2020 was like when I really saw her for like who she was. So for our 3-year anniversary, I took her to New Orleans, and it was like to celebrate 3 years. And she wanted to drink, have fun, all this stuff. And I was like, all right, great. I've never been to New Orleans. Let's go have fun. And there were a few incidents that happened that made the end of the trip just not great. One time we went to like this park in New Orleans, and she lost her phone. Like she put her phone in her back pocket, and we were riding these like low bicycles, and her phone fell out and she lost her phone. And then she started blaming me for losing the phone. And that's something I hate. Like I hate it when people don't take accountability for what they do, because I'm not responsible for your phone. So it really pissed me off. I was like, what do you mean your phone is lost because of me? And so we went back trying to find her phone. And luckily, like this couple had picked it up. And then also she revealed that, oh, some guys were messaging her and offering her like jobs and stuff like that. But it wasn't really a job. They were just trying to hook up with them. And so like that also kind of was odd to me. But at the same time, it was like, oh, at least she's telling you that people are messaging her. And then also I found out that after the New Orleans trip, she had lied to her friends and told them that I proposed to her, which I didn't. So that was very, very, very odd. So these were incidents that happened that was like kind of odd. At this point too, I wanted to do my master's and possibly go to medical school. So I started working a lot and like doing volunteer work and doing research. And I just was busy, but that became very strenuous in our relationship. And she started trauma dumping a lot. Like complaining about her family, complaining about her work, and like everything that was going on. And if I didn't agree with her, it was always a problem. So I was stressed out. I was having issues with my own family, like my stepdad. My stepdad felt like I wasn't doing much around the house, even though I was doing a whole lot, like with my life and stuff like that. So I had a lot going on. And so our relationship became strenuous. And I was like, hey, like I'm going through it right now. And she took that as, don't come to Teddy with any issues at all, because Teddy's very busy. But that was not what I was trying to say at all. So I refer to this as the all or none thing, where she does it all and tells you everything, or like comes to you with everything, or she doesn't at all. And this all culminated into this situation where for like 4 or 5 days I had not seen her. And I was so worried. I was calling her, texting her. She would not reply. She would not call, just completely disappeared on me. And before that, before she had disappeared on me, there was a huge situation that happened with her mom, where like her mom was basically berating her again. And my ex was like, hey, like, I can't do this anymore. Mentally, I'm not okay. I'm going to off myself. And I'm like, please don't, please don't. And then she hung up the phone. And so I called her brother, was like, hey, could you please go check on your sister? And her brother didn't seem worried. And she was like, oh, it's just our mom. She'll be okay. And I'm like, yo, your sister just told me she's about to off herself. Like, go check on her. And he didn't do it. He didn't care. And I was like, wow, like this is crazy. So for 4 or 5 days, I had not talked to her, seen her. My calls were not being picked up. So I was very, very worried. So I still had school work and all that. So I told one of my coworkers, I was like, please go check out. This is her workplace. I'm pretty sure she's working right now. Can you please go check on her? She went to check on her, and then she called me and was like, hey, Teddy, this is what happened. She has been kicked out, and she didn't want to like call you because you told her not to call you, which I didn't. And another reason was her mom, in like kicking her out, had destroyed your laptop, which you gave to her. And so she didn't know how to contact you. The laptop was not that damaged. It was like a minor damage to it. So I was like, it's not an issue. I'm glad she's okay. So I had told her like, hey, you can temporarily like live with me and my mom and my stepdad for a little bit until we find you a place. So please, like, just come. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. She had been apparently sleeping in her car. And I was like, okay, just come. And I never take my phone to the bathroom, but on this day I decided to take my phone to the bathroom. And I got a call from her, and she was like, hey, Teddy, I'm about to die. Like, this is it. This is goodbye. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, my car is on fire and I can't get out. And I'm like, oh my God, no, what do you mean? She's like, I'm off this exit, this is goodbye. So I start freaking out, put on clothes. I drive to the exit, and all I see is smoke in the air, and it's like pitch black. The fire people are like putting out the fire, and I can't find her. But later I find her, and she's freaking out, panicking, and her stepdad came, and her mom was on the phone, and her mom was like, this is God punishing you for disobeying me. And I was like, wow, what a rude thing to say to your daughter. Like, your daughter almost died. And then I put her in my car. She had lost all her clothes. So like, I put her in my car. We were going to my mom's house, and she started like almost passing out. And so we went to the ED. She came home with me, and I typed out emails to her professor, to the dean, everything like, hey, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. Like, please, like, give her an extension on her, like, whatever coursework she has going on. And so she started living with us. And this is when I really, really fully came to understand the type of person she was.
Hi, everyone. If you've been listening to Narcissist Apocalypse for a long time, you probably know I haven't done host read ads in years. And that's because all I really have with you is trust. So as time has gone on, I become more careful about what I bring to the show, especially because survivors deserve care from people who understand trauma and aren't treating it like some side issue. That's why I wanted to tell you about Rebound Therapy. Rebound offers specialized virtual treatment for people ready to work through past trauma and reclaim their lives. What stood out to me is that their therapists are carefully vetted and trained in evidence-based treatment. They pair their clinical expertise with deep support from survivor advocates who have lived experience to support your healing process between sessions. It's covered by many major insurance plans like Aetna, many Blue Cross Blue Shield plans, and more. Head to hellorebound.com/NA to check your insurance or get matched with a therapist. I'll also put the link in the episode description. So at this point, you've been in this relationship for 3 years. You at first believe that you had this shared goal for your futures. She was fun, and you had a deep empathy for her when it comes to the abuse from her mom and how she's treated. And that's a real thing, what she actually has to deal with from her mom. These are the bonds that are tying you, but as time has gone on, you are dealing with lies, you are dealing with jumping when things go wrong, and some of these things are family related, and of course someone is going to help when this happens. But you're starting to get the feeling here that it will always be something. And when you stated a boundary in communication as you needed to tend to your own issues, that became a fight. You got a bit of a silent treatment in there. It sounds like you were always having to meet their needs, and we never hear about her attempting to meet your needs, and she's blaming you for her losing her phone, so she's not taking responsibility when things are going wrong. And we have the beginnings here of what may possibly be infidelity. And she's also not as responsible as you thought. And now she is living inside your family home, where your eyes are going to open a little bit here more to who this person actually is. So what happens next?
So she moved in with us, and I started noticing patterns. She would not help around the house. She was always on social media. And like, I was just flustered by a lot of what I was seeing. Like, oh my God, this is not the same person. And whenever I would come to her, like, hey, this is an issue, she would blame it on her ADHD. So like I started like just not bothering anymore. I would just do whatever I needed to do myself. And it was around this time that I discovered like, oh, she had been emotionally like cheating on me. Basically, she had been talking to somebody on the side, and I was super confused. So being as that was, I broke up with her and she left. And then eventually we got back together after she pleaded with me. And after we got back together, I got into medical school. So I was very excited to go. And so I had to leave the state I was in and go to a different state for school. And it was like a 7-hour drive.
So now you're away. She's still living with your family. And now an event is going to happen that's financial. And you told me in our pre-call that this was the first inkling of thinking that you were being used. So tell us what happens here.
After her first car burned down, she got a new car that her dad bought her, and that car got caved in. I remember it was winter time. It caved in, and she called me and said, hey, Teddy, I need money. My car caved in. And I'm like, what happened? So she showed me, and so I sent her money for it. Literally the next day, the car was totally done. And so now she needed a new car to go to school and go to work. And so she called me and said she found a new car that she likes, but the down payment is like $2,000 or something like that. And at this point, I didn't trust her with money because she had lied to me about her finances and stuff like that. So I didn't really trust her. So I told her, if I'm going to give you this money, you promise to pay me back. The reason why I didn't trust her was because we had gone to Vegas, and I sent her half the money because we decided to go half on the hotel. So I sent her like, I think $750 at that time. And once we got to Vegas, instead of us just checking in and like going into a hotel, we found out that, oh no, we only put down a deposit. It was $125. And so it didn't make sense to me. You're supposed to pay the whole thing. And she was like, no, I paid the whole thing and I can prove it. But so I said, okay, show me. But she could not prove it. And so I had to come out of pocket and pay for the hotel. So she owed me like a lot of money at this point. She owed me like $1,000+ So I was like, I don't trust this person. And she would never make any attempt to pay back. She'll promise to pay back, but she never did. So I didn't really trust her. And so when it came to like trying to help her with her car, I was very hesitant. But I still ended up giving her the $2,000. And before I gave her the $2,000, I was like, please promise you're gonna pay on time. Promise you're gonna give me back my money. And she was crying, and we were on a video call, and she was sitting on a chair in the dining room and just slammed her body to the ground. And I was like, oh my God. And it just didn't make sense to me. Like, why would you slam your body on the ground? Like, you could hurt yourself. And she was like, if she didn't need the help, she would not be asking me, why am I making this so difficult on her? And so, like, after that, I was like, yep, $2,000, take it. And she did not save up anything while living at my mom's house rent free and utility free. It was always me coming to her rescue. And so, yeah, like, she ended up owing me a lot of money. And so 2022 comes around and my mental health starts waning. She was still living in my mom's house. By this point, like, the relationship is in a terrible shape. And my mom is calling me like, hey, your girlfriend is not here. It's like 4 a.m. And I was like, wow, maybe she's cheating again. I don't know. And then I'll come to her about it. I'm like, hey, like, mentally, I'm not in a very good space. And she seems sympathetic to her, like, oh, like, why are you worried about me? Like, you shouldn't be. And she fed into like that idea that I'm paranoid. I'm like, yeah, maybe I am paranoid. So I started seeking mental health services. And, I started talking to friends, and they were like, that were women. And they were like, yeah, you should be a good listener and, like, try and improve your communication. So I started, like, trying to get better at that. But like, it just didn't stop. Like, I was always paranoid, always worried. And so it all came to a head basically when I found out that she went to a hotel, but she had told me that she was going to go see a friend. And so I was like, why would you lie about this? And it could have been a simple, oh, this and that, and told me the truth. But it took like 3 hours just trying to extract information out of her about the situation. So she went in circles, and it like that was our whole relationship. It was always circular conversations all the time. And so like around Valentine's Day, like normally I'll write a letter to her. And this time, like, my heart was not in it. And we went out for Valentine's Day dinner, and it just wasn't great. There was this couple there, and they looked so happy, and I wanted to be happy too. And she looked at me and said, stop looking at that stupid couple over there. So I did. I stopped. And yeah, it was just horrible. And I decided, okay, maybe I'm the problem. So I wanted to reset the whole relationship again and decided to book for a trip for us to go on a cruise. And so we did. We went on a cruise, and I found out that she had been cheating the entire time. I had like a sleep paralysis, and there was like a voice that said, I'm going to release you. And when I release you, go straight to her photos. So when they released me, I went straight to her photos, and it was just a bunch of sex videos with her and other men. And I was like, oh my God. And that's how I found out. And even after all that, she still wanted to date me for some reason. And she was apologizing, saying she's just not good at love. And also she wanted to like off herself on the cruise. So like I had to rush and like help her and all these things. And even after the cruise, she wouldn't let me go. Like, she rode in the same Uber that I was in all the way to the train station. And she just didn't want me to go. So after this point, like, I wanted her to leave my mom's house, and she wouldn't leave. She became very vindictive and was saying that I'm going to get my family to beat you up if you like throw out my stuff. And then I just found out even more lies, more manipulation. Like, in particular, there was a day where she said, oh, she was so sad that, she was drinking and was not going to be able to talk to me only to find out that she had gone on a date. Like this is like literally maybe a week after I found out all these things. So I was like, hey, where were you at this day? And she was like, oh, this and that and that. And I was like, so why did you tell me you were at home drinking and yet you were on a date? And she remained silent. Like that was like it blew my mind. She just was silent because it almost like was reality breaking. This because here she is lying, and yet she was doing something totally different. So at this point, I was like, okay, like this person needs help, and I was learning about mental health in school at this point. So I was like, okay, get help and maybe we can try and figure something out. So I was still trying to give it another reset. And even then, when I gave her this chance, she was calling me, telling me about all the therapy she was going to, the therapy sessions that she was going to. And prior to that, I had asked her what her therapist was, like what was the name of her therapist? And she said Sincere. And so like I remembered that. And so I asked her another time, what's your therapist's name again? And she said Desiree. And I'm like, oh my God, this person is lying again. And that was when I was like, yeah, there's no help. That like I can't help this person. They have issues going on that I can't deal with, and this is not okay.
So we're listening to your story here of everything that's happened, and you're now getting to this understanding that this person that you thought was wonderful, all these things that you kind of thought might be going on, turns out these things are worse than you could have ever imagined. And there's this realization here that this whole relationship, you've been this person who has been the one who just comes running, the one who's anticipating, the one who's reacting to all of her needs, the abuser's needs, and doing all of these things and taking care of all of these things. And then there's this financial abuse that's going on. And they've had this whole other world going on in the background. And you've been holding this fort up for a very long time. And you were just being used in every single way. And this wasn't an unconscious being used. This was an intentional being used of who you are as a person. And now you're getting to this point where you can now see what has happened. So mentally, what happens to you at this point? Because that's a lot to take in, to take on. So how do you kind of wrap your head around all of this? And what happens to you when you kind of discover this?
So after the discovery, like I'm mentally broken. My head was like a cloud. I, I just couldn't think straight. I had to come back to school and take exams, and like I couldn't even focus. My mind was just a cloud. It was blank. And I don't even know how I got through that year of school. I was like a walking zombie on most days. I became suicidal myself, and it was only due to God and my family being by my side that I was able to go through it. And like when I discovered everything, I made sure to tell all my friends, my entire family about it so that I would never make the mistake of ever going back to her. So um, it took me years. This happened in 2023, and we're in 2026 now. It took me 3 years for me to like get to this level where I can even talk about it. And I had to do a lot of therapy, read a lot of books, and learn about myself a little bit more. I had so many anxiety and panic attacks during the last 3 years. I found out I have like health conditions like hypertension. My blood pressure increased like enormously. So like there was a lot of like health issues that came with this, both physical and mental. But by the grace of God and with family and with help of friends and through therapy, I've been able to like fight back and become a better person for it.
And if you had any words of wisdom for everyone listening, what would they be?
Just, have empathy for yourself. I used to think I was dumb, but you are not dumb. You are not stupid. You're a kind person and you're a loving person. There are people that are going to like take advantage of that. And if you learn more about yourself, you're able to like resist things like that. And just, the kindness that you show other people, just show it to yourself. And that's the most important thing I can tell people.
Well, Teddy, I really want to thank you for being here with us today and sharing your story. And it's really difficult to go through what you went through, and you suffered a lot mentally to go through something like that. And it was the ultimate deceit and betrayal. And I know a lot of people out there are validated by your story today. So I really can't thank you enough for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
Well, thank you, Teddy, once again for being here. And if you want to be a guest like Teddy was today, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com, fill out our guest form, and we'll go from there. Also, at our website, we have a support group with Zoom meetings every Wednesday nights, Thursday afternoons, and Saturday nights. We also have forum boards for you to post on to get the validation you need from survivors just like you. And that is at narcissistapocalypse.com. And also at narcissistapocalypse.com, we have a newsletter there where you get a free reflection workbook for every new survivor story. That is a weekly newsletter, all at narcissistapocalypse.com. And that is it for today's survivor story. So for myself and Teddy, we hope you have a good night.